Picture this. You've been selected for a lab experiment by an eccentric scientist who has offered you a potential money-making dichotomy. In front of you are two boxes, box A and box B. Box A is transparent and you can see £1,000 sitting inside there, ready for your potential selection. Box B is sat next to it. However, box B is opaque and you're unsure of the monetary value of its contents. The scientist tells you that you may choose whether to take either one box, making you a one-boxer, or take two boxes, making you a two-boxer, and you consequently get to keep the contents of whatever you select. He tells you, however, that there is one catch. As you entered the lab, you were scanned by his prized supercomputer, which analysed you to inform a prediction as to whether or not you are a one-boxer or a two-boxer. If the supercomputer predicted you to be a one-boxer, then £1 million was placed in box B. However, if he predicted you to be a two-boxer, then £0 was placed inside. The supercomputer makes its predictions with the highest degree of accuracy, having carried out this experiment on hundreds of subjects before you and have never got it wrong yet. So, what do you do? One way of analysing your decision-making is by comparing two schools of thought: causal decision theory, which represents two-boxing, and evidential decision theory, which represents one-boxing. To first understand why these two views lock heads, and ultimately why this is a paradox, we must understand the features of Newcomb's problem. We have four distinct features. First, there is stochastic dependence between act and state. Here, the states are the outcomes following your box decision. Simply put, the conditional distribution of one of them changes when the other one is altered. Secondly, states are causally independent. Thirdly, one option dominates the other. Given either state, you will be £1,000 better off if you two-box. We will call this horizontal dominance, getting its name from the reference to the payoff matrix. Finally, the worst outcome in one state, which is the predicted one-boxing in this case, is better than the best outcome in the other. This property is called vertical superdominance. Now that we understand the nature of the problem, we can see how the two theories attempt to address it. When combining causal independence and horizontal dominance, we seem to rationalise two-boxing. Once the prediction has been made, there's nothing you can do to change what is inside those boxes. This is the grounds for causal decision theory. Causal decision theory questions which decisions will probably cause the most desirable effect in the future. Any implications of that decision itself are not being accounted for because that isn't how causation works. This is the point that Sainsbury makes in his argument, which I find most compelling. We'll run through it now. We must understand that from our perspective as the chooser, if we are at all tempted to open both boxes, the predictor will have calculated this in and likely not have put any money in box 2. However, we have no ability to eradicate this disposition, and consequently it is logical for us to open both boxes, as there will either be no money in that box anyway, or the predictor failed to compute the factors which led you to having that disposition to open 2, because after all it is a prediction, not a certainty, which then would mean that there will be new money to take. In a similar vein, if we were inclined to open only box 2, it's reasonable to assume that the predictor also accounted for the factors informing this, and so you should go against your better nature and open both boxes, as this can only play to your advantage now that the prediction has already been made in the past. But now if we look at the other side of the coin, by combining the two other features of stochastic dependence and vertical superdominance, we seem to rationalise one-boxing. This is the foundation of evidential decision theory within Newcomb's problem. Evidential decision theory merely looks at the likely states of the world post-decision, rather than the relationship between a given choice and its consequences. After considering how desirable each possible world state could be, you opt for the decision which will bring that about. What this is saying is that because of your high predictive success rate on the supercomputer, most people who one-box do end up being millionaires. As an observer, you would feel pretty comfortable hedging your bets on someone selecting both boxes and it resulting in an empty box B, and in the singular selection of box B resulting in it containing 1 million. After all, the supercomputer makes its predictions with the highest degree of accuracy, having carried out this experiment on hundreds of subjects before you and never being wrong yet. We can evaluate the evidential causal distinction we've just made as a more primitive dichotomy between determinism and free will. The decision you make in Newcomb's paradox can be considered a strong indicator of your beliefs on logical fatalism. So, a determinist would be likely to be a one-boxer, as their decision has already been decided by the factors that the supercomputer would have already been able to predict. Therefore, picking two boxes would always lead the first box to be empty. If you could describe the supercomputer's predictions to be a sort of clairvoyance, like a determinist might, then it wouldn't be out of the question to say that your decision also caused the computer's prediction. On the other hand, a person who believes in free will would be more likely to be a two-boxer, as they wouldn't see the connection between their own decision and the computer's, since their free will inherently couldn't have been predicted, and thus the two-box scenario would seem like the better option. This is mostly because the decision for contents had already been made, meaning their decision thereafter wouldn't affect the value inside. As a believer of the two-boxing view based on the previous argument discussed from Sainsbury, I could be concerned that the supercomputer is merely rewarding irrationality, which means that the argument might not really make sense. However, if irrationality pays, then it's not irrationality at all, is it? If you think as a one-boxer, then you could likely become a millionaire too, based on Sainsbury's solution. It is rational to adopt means to ends, so it's rational to think the way that they think in this regard. The problem is that even if you can see this logic, you cannot choose to convince yourself to think that way, which is the same way that they do. And this can be seen through the same scenario where if you were offered £1 million to believe that they're four sides of a triangle, you just simply cannot do it. As Howard Sobel said, efficacy still trumps auspiciousness. Ultimately, Newcomb's problem leaves us with a battle between what Kenny Iswaran refers to as rational character and rational action. What he means by this is that Newcomb-like situations is such that the habits and virtues that are most effective at promoting one's ends overall lead to particular actions, but other actions are the ones that are most effective in the moment at promoting one's ends. Thus, on his characterisation, the rational habits lead to irrational actions, and the rational actions are only promoted by irrational habits. Rational character directs you towards taking only one box, however, rational action would be to take both boxes. Kenny describes the divergence of rational character and rational action in situations like these, the deep tragedy at the heart of rationality. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with one question. The marks for the puzzles and paradoxes assignments have been artificially high due to a horrid bout of cheating among the cohort, meaning that the boundaries have all been pushed up, and having not cheated yourself before, your grades are now taking a hit. However, Brian has hyperlinked you to a web page, which does not hyperlink to itself, with a big red button on it, which stops all cheaters' final assessment Turn It In pages from working. So, should you hit it?